Hi guys, today we're going to be doing 2.5 part B. The section is called Complex Zeros Given 1 0. So we are trying to find all of the zeros similar to what we did yesterday. The difference here is that these are unfactorable, and so we can't just start by factoring. We are given 1 0 though, so I know that a 0 to this function is 5. Because I'm given that function, I can use it to reduce this polynomial into one that I can factor. So basically what this 5 being a 0 tells me is that the factor x minus 5 divides evenly into this function. So if I divide this 3x cubed minus blah blah blah, if I divide that by x minus 5, I'm going to get something that is still part of this function, but it's a lower degree, so I may be able to then factor that. So it's similar to like if I have the number 10 and I know that a factor of 10 is 2, like I know 2 goes evenly into 10, then I could go ahead and divide 10 by 2 to see that that equals 5, right? 5 times 2 equals 10. So if I have one of the factors and I divide it by that factor, I'm going to get another factor. So that's what we're doing here. So you can use long division or synthetic division, whichever you prefer. I'm going to go with synthetic division. So I'm going to put 5 up here. I'm going to write my numbers across 3, negative 26, 65, negative 50. Remember on those to always double check to make sure that your exponents go down in order, right? We want to put a 0 if we have one that's missing. In this box should be a remainder, and because I know that's a 0, I know that this is a given 0 or a given solution. I know that my remainder should be 0. If it's anything else, it means I made a mistake somewhere and I need to go back. So remember, start by dropping the 3 straight down. 5 times 3 is 15. We're going to total this column. So negative 26 plus 15 would give me a negative 11. 5 times negative 11 would be negative 55. And 65 minus 55 is 10. And then 5 times 10 is 50. So indeed, I do get a 0. So what that tells me is that another factor of this polynomial, besides x minus 5, is 3x squared minus 11x plus 10. Because remember, whenever I have whatever degree I have here, once I've divided one of the x's out of it, this polynomial will be 1 degree less, and then each term goes down by 1 in order. So now I have a quadratic, and that looks like I could use x factoring to factor it, and that will give me those other 2 zeros. Remember, this should have 3 zeros altogether. It gave me 1, which is 5. So now I need to find the other 2. So remember, a, which is 3, times c, which is 10, would give me 30. And then my middle term is b, so negative 11. So I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to 30 and add to negative 11. So let's see, I could do, 1 and 30 won't work, 2 and 15 won't work, 3 and 10, 4 doesn't go in evenly, 5 and 6, there we go. So negative 5 and negative 6. Negative 5 times negative 6 is 30, negative 5 plus negative 6 is negative 11. So I can rewrite this as x minus 5 and x minus 6. And then don't forget, always divide each of those by a. If it goes in evenly, you're going to divide it. If it doesn't go in evenly, you're going to move it in front. So 3x minus 5, and that one would go to x minus 2. And then go ahead and solve. Like if I were to set these equal to 0, what does x have to equal? For x minus 2, it's just 2. For 3x minus 5, remember, take it, set it equal to 0, and solve for x. So I would add 5 to both sides. So 3x equals 5. Divide by 3, and x is equal to 5/3. So here's the other 2 zeros that we found. And then don't forget x equals 5 was also one of the zeros. That's the one that was given to us. So those are the 3 zeros for this function. Pretty nifty, right? All right, so let's just try another one. So number 2, I know again that there should be 3. This is not factorable. I'm given one that's negative 5. So I'm going to put negative 5 here. Remember, that tells me that x plus 5 divides evenly in. Put your numbers across, make sure they go down in order from highest exponent to lowest, which these ones do. Okay, remember, since I'm given that -5 is a 0, that should be 0. If it's not, I made a mistake, so just keep that in mind. So drop your 3. -5 and 3 is -15. 23 minus 15 would be 8. 8 and -5 would give me -40. 37 minus 40 is -3, and -5 times -3 is +15. So remember, go down 1 degree, so this would be 3x squared plus 8x minus 3. Now we're going to x factor. Remember, always look for a common factor first, but here we don't have one. So a is 3 and c is -3, so 3 times -3 is -9, and then 8 is our b term. So two numbers that multiply to -9 and add to 8 would be 9 and -1. So I'll have x plus 9 and x minus 1, and then don't forget, divide them both by a, which gives me x plus 3 times 3x minus 1. So for x plus 3, the 0 would be -3. For 3x minus 1, I would add 1 to both sides and then divide by 3, so x equals 1/3. So there's 2 of the zeros. The third one would just be x equals -5. So there's all 3. Okay, let's try another one. I guess we'll try number 3. It's a 5th degree, so it should have 5 zeros. The one that's given to us is -2. So I've got a 2, 4, -15, -30, 18, and 36. So definitely wouldn't want to try to factor that, right? That's pretty hairy. I should get a 0 here because it is already given to me that it is a 0. Drop the 2. -2 and 2 is -4, gives me 0. -2 and 0 is 0, which gives me -15. -2 and -15 is 30, so it gives me 0. -2 times 0 is 0, which gives me 18, and then -2 and 18 is -36. Okay, so that did give me 0. So we got to be careful here because there's some zeros here. So this one was 5th degree, which means our 2 should be x to the 4th degree. It goes down 1. Our 3rd degree term is gone. It's a 0, so we don't need to write a 3rd degree term. Our 2nd degree term would be -15. The x term is gone as well, and then my constant term is 18. So because it gave me those zeros, I could write it as 0x to the 3rd and 0x, but I just don't need those terms in there because 0 times x is 0. All right, so now I have an x to the 4th and an x squared. So remember, when I have that pattern where this one is to the 4th and this one is squared, I can still use x factoring. I would just need to put x squared here and here instead of x, right? So make sure there's no common factor, which here there's not. Multiply 2 and 18, that would be 36. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 36 and add to -15. So let's see, I've got 6 and 6, got 12 times 3. That would work. They were both negative. -12 times -3 is 36, and -12 plus -3 is -15. So I'd have -12 here and -3 here. And then I would just need to divide each of those by a. So that gives me x squared minus 4, sorry, minus 6, because 12 divided by 2 is 6, and then 2x squared minus 3. So now we still need to solve these to get our x values. So I can just go ahead and set x squared minus 6 equal to 0. So I would add 6 to both sides. That gives me x squared equals 6. And then I would take the square root of both sides to get rid of the x squared, because those undo each other, right? And anytime I'm taking the square root of a variable, I would have to have the positive and the negative of that solution, because square root of 6 times square root of 6 is 6, but also negative square root of 6 times negative square root of 6 is 6. So both would work. So that gives me 2 of the solutions. For 2x squared minus 3, if I set that equal to 0, I would add 3 to both sides to get 2x squared equals 3. Divide by 2. That would take care of that one. And then if I take the square root of that, I'm going to get x equals plus or minus the square root of 3/2. So there's 2 more of my solutions. And then the 5th one would be that x equals -2 that was given in the beginning. Okay, so there's the 5. All right, we'll just do one more example. let's do number 6. So I have my -5 out here. I'm gonna go ahead and do synthetic division again. 3, 22, 40, 26, and 5. This should be a 0. Drop this one down. -5 and 3 is -15. 22 minus 15 is 7. -5 times 7 is -35, which gives me a +5. -5 and 5 is -25. And 1 times -5 is -5. So this is going to give me 3x cubed. Remember, it goes 1 degree down from that, plus 7x squared plus 5x plus 1. So I still have 4 terms here, and oops, this one is not factorable. I tried to avoid, I thought I had avoided those in your assignment. So because it's not factorable, just write not factorable. If that happens on your assignment, which I was hoping it's not going to, just write not factorable, because even if I group these, there's no common factor here once I take like x squared out. These aren't going to match anyway. So if that happens on your assignment, just write not factorable. You don't have to do 7 and 8 on your assignment, just 1 through 6. So let's actually, since that one we turned out to be not factorable, let's go ahead and do number 5. All right, I'm going to just kind of erase that a little bit so we can see number 5 better. All right, so start out the same way. We have our -3. We have 5, 16, -2, -16, and -3. We want that to be 0, or we made a mistake because it was given to us as a 0. So -3 and 5 is -15. That'll give me a +1. -3 and 1 is -3, which gives me a -5. -3 times -5 is 15, which would give me a -1. And -3 and -1 is 3. So we have 5x to the third plus x squared minus 5x minus 1. So now this one, again, has 4 terms, but this one I can see 5 and 1. They're both going to have that 5 and 1. So we can go ahead and group it. Remember, when you're grouping with a negative between, you want to keep that negative inside the parentheses and just turn that to a plus between. Now we're just looking for common factors, so I'm going to pull out x squared in this first group, which would leave me with 5x plus 1. Remember, double check, if I multiply it back through, I've got to get that same thing that I started with. Here I'm just going to pull out a -1 because there's no other common factors. That would leave me 5x plus 1, because -1 times 5x is -5x, and -1 times +1 gives me back the -1. So now I see that they both have this matching 5x plus 1. So I'm going to pull that 5x plus 1 out front, which would just leave x squared minus 1 on the inside. So I should have 4 zeros here. One of them is -3. From 5x plus 1, if I set that equal to 0 and solve, I'm going to get that the second x, or a second x, is x equals -1/5. From my third factor here, x squared minus 1, if I set that equal to 0, I'd add 1 to both sides, so x squared equals 1. Take the square root of both sides. The square root of 1 is just 1, so those cancel. But remember, it could be +1 or -1, because 1 times 1 gives me 1. But also -1 times -1 is also a +1. So remember, you just have to do a positive and negative when you're taking the square root of both sides like that. So -3, -1/5, +1, and -1. All right, guys, that's it for today. Good luck. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. We can talk over email, or we can set up a Zoom meeting if you need a little bit more help in person. So have a great day. Bye.